I've been a minimalist for a little over a year now, and it has had a profound effect on how I spend my money. There are things I still buy, but also things I no longer spend money on. So I thought I'd share a list of those, what works for me, to hopefully inspire you on your minimalist journey. So here are 7 things I no longer buy as a minimalist. One thing I no longer buy as a minimalist is excessive home decorations. Now before, when I lived with roommates, I would move into a house which was fully furnished. So the only thing I needed to bring was a bed, a desk, maybe a chair or a small sofa, but that was about it. That all changed when I started living on my own. I was super excited. I got subscriptions to these interior design magazines. I even dreamed of having my own apartment featured in one of those magazines one day. All I needed was to fill my apartment with stuff. Cool stuff, but still. So every other weekend I would go to the mall to look for things I could fill my apartment with. And then at the end of the month, once I got my paycheck, I would go buy what I could afford. First the essential items like a sofa, a dining table and chairs, a TV. But I would also end up with all these home decor pieces that I didn't really need but just thought looked nice. Colorful vase, a tray on the coffee table, throw pillows, candle holders, wall decorations. Like I put something on every wall. Why not? Why leave them empty? It's safe to say I went a little overboard. So when I decluttered my current apartment, I kept my walls empty for a month, just to feel what that would be like. Then, when I did decide to add some color, I was very intentional about it. I added this watercolor painting, which is special to me because it was made by my dad. And these 2 shelves behind the sofa, with 2 quotes that inspire me to live with intention. I don't have much else as home decor. There's nothing on the coffee table, and the only thing in the corner is a small Buddha statue. Practicing minimalism is an ongoing learning experience for me, and I may make different choices next year. You may make different choices than me. I'm just sharing what I've done so far and my thought process behind it. And hopefully it's helpful to some of you watching. So I used to spend a lot of money on branded clothes. I remember in high school, I really wanted these LA Gears that had this light in the heel that lit up when you walked. And I convinced my parents to get me a pair, but they didn't have it in my size. And I wanted them so badly. I was like, oh no, this bigger size, it actually fits me well, which it didn't. I felt like a clown walking around with these big shoes. And then I had this phase where I was really into surf brands. So I liked Simmer Style. It had the logo here, the S, and then the print on the back. I like Body Glove as well. I even had a Body Glove yearly planner. I bought Levi jeans. And then when I had my corporate job, I switched to more smart casual. Hugo Boss jeans, Tommy Hilfiger, softwool pullovers, that kind of stuff, button shirts. I was working as a lawyer at the time, which I no longer do. I probably will do a video later on this channel why I quit my job as a lawyer, but that's for later. I had to put in a lot of hours, and I felt like if I don't spend that money, like why am I working so hard? So in the weekend, I would often go to the shop and buy new clothes. Also, like I didn't know anything about investing or about compound interest. So it wasn't even on my radar. Since I've become a minimalist, it's completely different. I don't really care about branded clothes anymore. I just have a couple of plain looking t-shirts, a couple of jeans, and that's it. No more branded clothes. So I used to buy a lot of paper books, especially before the e-readers were a thing. When I was done with them, they would just stack up on shelves and I would never reread them. I was just following my dad's example. I thought this was normal. Like my parents' house is full of books and he never gets rid of any. But then I went traveling to Southeast Asia many years ago and I bought an e-reader. And the main reason was that books are heavy and I just had a backpack. I didn't want to break my back. E-readers seemed like the great alternative. It grew on me. I really liked it. I could access any book I wanted. I didn't have to go to the bookstore to go get it or wait for it to be delivered. And when I was done reading, it wouldn't take up any space. And what I also like is that you can highlight text and export it to a tool like Notion. I've read many books in my life, but if I'm honest, I don't remember much of them. So that's why recently I've started writing book summaries of each book that I wrote, with these highlights as a basis, and I also add key takeaways of that book. I have a Notion database for that. I do miss the tactile feel of like flipping through the pages and the smell of a new book. So when I really want to read a paper book, I borrow one from a friend, from family, or from the library. I no longer buy items on sale. I'm not against buying things at a discount, not at all. But I'm very cautious about impulse buys. We've all been there. In a moment, it seems like a good idea. But over time, many of these items just pile up in the back of a closet or a drawer, gathering dust. So I want to be mindful about what I surround myself with. I really like this idea of Fumio Sasaki's silent to-do list. It's this idea that all items in your house have a personality, they have their wants and needs, and they want to be cared for. I did a whole video about this, which I will link to up here. Minimalism is about removing excess and distractions to create space for what's truly important. And to me, the goal of minimalism is to be intentional. If you're not intentional about your purchasing decisions, it's so easy to fill the house with stuff again after decluttering. To help with that, there are rules like the 1 out, 1 in rule, the 90-90 rule, etc. For me, I've set this rule that I will not buy items on sale. Unless I had already thought it through and decided I was going to buy it anyway, because then I'd be intentional about it. When I was a student, I loved playing video games. I had a PlayStation with games like Gran Turismo, Tekken 3, FIFA, Tomb Raider, and James Bond, GoldenEye. I loved playing Tekken against my roommate. My favorite character was Eddie Gordo. He knew capoeira, and it was just constantly in motion. I knew all his combos. And then when I started working, I stopped playing video games. Until one day, I was working for 5 years by that time. I was super hungover on a Saturday. I wanted to play video games again. So I drove to the shop, I bought an Xbox, and I bought a couple of games like the latest FIFA, a Batman game. And I came home and I started playing, and I was like, wow, FIFA got really complicated all of a sudden. When I was a student, there were like 4 moves, and this was basically all you needed to know. And now it was just way more technical. I had to practice all of a sudden, which I didn't really want to do. So I switched to the Batman game, and that was also complicated. And that was it. Like, I never played those video games again, apart from that one day that I bought the Xbox. So that was an expensive lesson. That was a good example of an impulse buy that backfired. I love traveling, visiting new countries, exploring different cultures, and I cherish my memories of these travels.
Check out this view. This is insane.
But what I don't cherish is the cheap souvenirs I brought home in the past. A bag with the name of a city on it, keychains, a mug or a mouse pad with a painting on it that I bought at a museum shop. Oh, and subscribe buttons. I wouldn't buy them as souvenirs. But hey, if you like this video and you want to follow along on my journey, hitting that subscribe button with minimal effort would mean a lot to me. So when I bought these souvenirs, I guess I did so as a way of holding on to the experience. I was wowed by that painting, enamored by the beauty, the food, the colors of the country. However, what minimalism made me see is that those souvenirs can't capture and preserve the essence of that experience. Over time, they become just one more meaningless thing in a house that takes up space. I think the beauty of any experience is that it isn't everlasting, and knowing that it will end helps me appreciate it more in the moment. Podcast host Sam Harris points out that our lives are inevitably full of activities that we're doing for the very last time. Usually, there'll be no way to know in the moment itself that you're doing it for the last time. Harris's point is that we should therefore try to treat every such experience with the reverence which show it if it were the final instance of it. A cheap souvenir can't come close to doing justice to the richness of the experience of the trip itself. What's worse, by having it around in my apartment, it adds to the clutter that has a negative impact on my living space right now. So I don't buy souvenirs anymore, but I make an exception for things that ease a transition when I'm back home. And for me that centers around food. A pastel de nata from Lisbon, that's a Portuguese custard tart, or a bottle of vermouth from Spain. One last bite or drink to commemorate the amazing experience I just had, knowing that this moment too isn't everlasting. I love eating well, and I used to think I loved cooking too. But that changed when I lived in Thailand for a while, because when I was there I realized it was actually more expensive to go to the supermarket, buy ingredients and cook them at home, than to just go out for food. And the food that I ate when I went out was better too. However, I don't live in Thailand anymore, so I don't eat out much these days. I'm back in the kitchen. But unlike before, I don't spend much money on kitchen items anymore. I have enough for simple cooking. A few pots and pans, cutlery, an oven tray, but that's about it. My kitchen used to be full of items I only used once and then never touched again. I remember hosting a cocktail party and I went out to get a cocktail set with a shaker, a strainer, a mixing spoon, and of course I had to have the margarita cocktail glasses. Never used them again. Or that one time I decided to make sushi at home. I went out to buy the sushi set and I made the rice, I rolled it, and quickly realized, wow, this is so much work. Next time I'm ordering sushi again. And I never touched the set again. and my kitchen was full with things like that. Now I no longer have cookbooks. When I'm looking for a recipe, I'll just find it online. I don't have a microwave, I don't have a toaster, I don't even have a coffee machine. I just have this AeroPress, which I use to make my coffee, and I love it because I can also travel with it. Embracing minimalism has had a great impact on me. For one, it changed what I spend my money on. But if you want to know how else it changed my life, I did a separate video on it, which you can watch right here. It's one of the most viewed videos on my channel. So I hope to see you there. Thanks for watching and take care. Bye.